This is the exact moment two brothers attacked their mother's killer in court. And this is just one of the 20 cases we'll be covering in this video of killers getting attacked in court, starting with the case of Vashon Flowers. This is Vashon Flowers, who's on trial for murder in Muskegon County, Michigan. According to reports, in May 2019, Flowers shot and killed his wife, Jamie, at their home after an argument over cigarettes. Initially, they argued for more than a day, after which police arrived and separated the two. Flowers left, but hours later he returned, kicked in the door, and shot Jamie 4 times. The 46-year-old then turned himself in and was charged with open murder. In court, Jamie's daughter Paris, who witnessed the whole incident, testified.
And he got down on the ground and started choking my mother. Actually, I heard, "You don't have to do this, Vashon. Please don't do this. You don't have to do this." And then I heard gunshots. Bullet holes in her shirt and blood.
But it was Jamie's son who decided to take matters into his own hands. During a hearing, 21-year-old London Jones was seated in the gallery with the rest of his siblings, when suddenly he leaped over the barricade and headed straight towards his mother's killer. Alert deputies were able to tackle him just in the nick of time. Eventually, the grieving son was restrained and taken out of the courtroom. After the dust settled, Flowers was convicted of Jamie's murder.
That moment when London leaped over the barricade, it's raw, unfiltered pain. You can feel the weight of losing a mother, the desperation to confront her killer. It's not just anger, it's a cry for justice that the courtroom can't contain. How do you process watching someone destroy your family? The law says life in prison, but for London, that's not enough to heal the wound.
3-year-old Jeffrey Clark, who's facing first-degree premeditated murder charges in Fraser, Michigan. On July 4th, 2022, Clark shot and killed 28-year-old Jeray Robertson in execution style after chasing him down an apartment complex parking lot.
This was an execution. Just wasn't a murder, an execution.
A doorbell camera captured the moment Robertson was shot. Clark was arrested after an ankle monitor he was wearing placed him at the crime scene.
Your Honor, at the time, the defendant had a tether on his ankle. We do have the tether records that place him at that location at that time.
At his trial, Clark's girlfriend testified that the defendant threatened her after the shooting.
He proceeded to tell me that he would kill me if I told on him. He told me that Mr. Robertson begged for his life and that the only thing he was worried about was that he was on tether.
However, when the prosecution played a video showing the judge and family members how Robertson was executed, the courtroom exploded.
Man, they gonna see you.
Sitting in the gallery watching his brother begging for his life was Robertson's twin, Jerry, who got into a brawl with the defendant.
You was still shooting. You on the ground already, you still shooting, you begging you not to kill this man.
Jerry also clashed with Clark's father, who was upset his killer's son got punched.
You hear him. Man, he killed us. Put him in there with myself.
Go ahead.
Put him in there.
Vashon, man.
Knock it off.
Vashon.
After order was restored, Clark was convicted of first-degree murder, felony firearm, and felon in possession of a firearm, and was sentenced to life in prison with no hope for parole. While Jeffrey Clark was punched in the face by his victim's twin brother, what happens when a victim's father attacks? Like in the case of 39-year-old Michael Madison, who's on trial for multiple murders in Ohio. In 2023, Madison allegedly kidnapped and killed Angela Deskins, Shatisha Sheely, and Sherelda Terry before dumping their bodies in plastic bags near his home in East Cleveland. Police also found decomposed human remains in his apartment.
His front door is boarded up, and investigators tell me when they went inside, they discovered a grisly scene. You can see an unmade bed, boxes.
There was evidence of decomposition fluid in several parts of the apartment building. There were maggots that were attached to the decomposition fluid.
Madison was arrested and charged with 3 counts of aggravated murder. If convicted, he could be facing the death penalty.
Michael, you got anything to say? Anything to say to Anthony Sowell? We hear that you're a fan of his.
At his trial, the defense claimed the murders were spontaneous and in the heat of the moment.
What we have, ladies and gentlemen, is an equal plausible explanation that each one of these individuals was killed with a sudden eruption of violence. He made no effort to bury these bodies and really conceal them, despite the fact that they're in fairly obvious areas.
However, the prosecution argued that Madison's actions were calculative and premeditated.
He killed them in the same way, at the same place, and in a short time frame. Then he disposed of their bodies. To avoid detection from his crimes, he tied 2 of the victims up with duct tape, placing their legs on each side of their head and bending the body in half.
Eventually, Madison was found guilty of all charges as the victims' family members cried tears of joy. During sentencing, Sherelda's father, Van Terry, addressed his daughter's killer.
Right now, in our hearts, forgive this crime. We've touched our families, taken my child.
He looked straight at Madison, who grinned at him off camera. This is when Terry exploded. Fortunately, Terry was quickly apprehended and taken out of the courtroom. He did not face any additional charges. A short while later, Judge Nancy McDonnell addressed the court.
I am struck by the sheer inhumanity of what one human being could do to not one, but 3 human beings.
She called the murders an act of sheer inhumanity.
You went on to abuse the corpses of these 3 victims. You stripped them from the waist down. You folded them in half.
Finally, it was time for the serial killer to learn his sentence.
Accordingly, the sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant.
Van Terry's explosion at Madison's grin, it's chilling. Its smirk in the face of such loss is inhuman. As a father, how do you forgive someone who took your daughter and mocked her memory? The death penalty feels like justice, but it can't bring Shalia back. These cases show how thin the line is between order and chaos in a courtroom when pain runs this deep.
Like in the case of Dale Williams, who's facing murder charges in Youngstown, Ohio. In June 2017, Williams ran his ex-girlfriend Elizabeth Pledger Stewart's car off the road, causing it to crash. He then shot and killed the 46-year-old mother of 2. After his arrest, Williams pleaded guilty to aggravated murder and weapons charges. Facing the possibility of life in prison, the 62-year-old appeared at his sentencing, where the victim's 2 sons decided to deliver some justice of their own. 30-year-old Anthony Dees jumped across the table, evaded deputies, and dragged Williams down by his feet. Then, 23-year-old Jerome Stewart ran over to help his brother, and the 2 delivered a barrage of punches and kicks to the defendant. As deputies struggled to contain the brothers, one officer pulled out a taser gun and shot Stewart. Williams was safely escorted from the courtroom as he wiped the blood off his face. Finally, the 2 aggrieved sons were arrested and taken out of the courtroom. They later faced charges of assault, contempt of court, and obstruction of justice. Buffalo, New York. On May 14th, 2022, Gendron allegedly carried out a mass shooting at Tops Friendly Markets on the east side of Buffalo. He live-streamed part of the attack on Twitch, a video streaming platform. First, Gendron was seen getting into his tactical gear. Upon reaching his destination, Gendron can be heard saying, "Just gotta go for it," and "This is the end."
Just gotta go for it, right? It's the end. Right here.
What happened next left the whole nation shocked.
He shot a lot of people up in there. Oh my God. Wow. He a terrorist or something. Yo, he gotta be a terrorist. Wow. Walk in, man. That nigga almost shot me, man.
Yeah. Twitch shut down the live stream within minutes, but the damage was already done. The world had glimpsed the horror unfolding in real time. Police arrived at the scene within minutes, but by that time, 10 people had already lost their lives, and a further 3 were injured. All the victims were African Americans. Dispatch calls captured the horrors that unfolded that day.
We're going to update possible active shooter at the top. There are still shots being fired. We got at least 3 people down on the ground. I can't tell you about shooting. This might be an individual with body armor. PD have him about 20 feet out. Their security guard just gave us 2 people down so far. PD's got him cornered. Looks like 3 people face down at least.
We have bodies down here. Also, we're going to need some officers inside the top because we have numerous bodies and we have magazines and bullets and everything.
Gendron surrendered without any resistance and was subsequently arrested.
To see that sense of security shattered by an individual, a white supremacist who has engaged in an act of terrorism and will be prosecuted as such.
After calling it an act of terrorism, authorities said Gendron initially tried to kill himself, but was talked out of it by officers.
He worked his way back towards the front of the store. Buffalo police immediately respond, engage a suspect in the vestibule of the store, and at that point, the suspect put the gun to his own neck. Buffalo police personnel, 2 patrol officers, talked the suspect into dropping the gun. He dropped the gun, took off some of his tactical gear, surrendered at that point.
At his trial, the prosecution argued that Gendron had tried to start a race war.
He drove over 200 miles out of his way with one mission, with one goal: to kill as many black people as possible. During that 3-hour drive, he could have turned around, but he wouldn't be deterred. He was steadfast to accomplish his goal of killing as many black people as possible and starting a race war.
They also said Gendron targeted the area, which is predominantly a black neighborhood. Gendron also canvassed the area and made drawings of the supermarket prior to the attack. 2 days before the attack, Gendron posted online a 180-page manifesto that described his motives and showed his support for white supremacism. The assault rifle used by Gendron was also littered with racist slurs and names of individuals who had previously carried out similar attacks. Eventually, Gendron pleaded guilty to all charges related to murder, domestic terrorism, and hate crimes. At his sentencing, emotionally charged family members of the victims directly addressed their loved one's killer.
We find strength in knowing that her legacy will outlive you. You will simply go from a name to a number. You will be herded like cattle. You will be shut away from the world. You will not enjoy family events. You will not enjoy outings with friends. You will be nameless and faceless, and we feel sorry for you. We pity you even. Your life was meaningless before May 14th, 2022, and you woke up every day feeling small.
I don't wish the death penalty on you. I wish they keep you alive, so you have to suffer with the thought of what you did for the rest of your life.
And trust me and believe, these dudes can't stop me, really. I'm the littlest thing in here and very agile, but I don't want to hurt you.
However, one family member decided to take matters into his own hands.
You don't know a damn thing about black people. We're human. We like our kids to go to good schools. We love our kids. We never go in those neighborhoods and take people out. Don't do it.
As the woman addressed Gendron, the man charged at the defendant but was quickly detained and escorted out of the courtroom. Gendron was later given a chance to address the court, where he showed remorse and apologized to the victims' families.
I'm very sorry for stealing the lives of your loved ones. I cannot express how much I regret all the decisions I made leading up to my actions on May 14th. I did a terrible thing that day. I shot and killed people because they were black. Looking back now, I can't believe I actually did it. I believed what I read online and acted out of hate. And now I can't take it back, but I wish I could. And I don't want anyone to be inspired by me and what I did.
But the judge showed him no mercy.
There is no place for you or your ignorant, hateful, and evil ideologies in a civilized society. There can be no mercy for you, no understanding, no second chances. The damage you have caused is too great, and the people you have hurt are too valuable to this community. You will never see the light of day as a free man ever again. It is the judgment of this court for your conviction under the first count of the indictment, a domestic act of terrorism motivated by hate in the first degree, an A1 felony, that you be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
Ultimately, Gendron was sentenced to life in prison to act in front of a judge.
You know that I can't do that. That's not how our legal system works.
Like in the case of Larry Nassar, who's facing multiple sexual abuse charges in Michigan. Nassar, who served as the team doctor for USA Gymnastics, was accused of sexually assaulting hundreds of young gymnasts under the guise of medical treatment, many of whom were Olympians. Police said Nassar manipulated the athletes into believing he was their trusted friend and advisor.
You have to protect your athletes. You have to let them know that we care. You have to not let them know, but let them feel it. Let them understand it. Let them breathe it.
Nassar was brought in for questioning, where he claimed he was in fact the victim.
That's my self-torture, I guess you could say that. Yes, she was victimized. Yes, I was victimized to myself.
Instead, Nassar blamed the young women he victimized, saying they should have said something sooner.
If she was feeling violated in any way, shape, and form, there was no communication.
Okay. Nassar also defended his medical procedures.
If you don't have patient confidence and patient trust, you would have been having my in here how many times?
Right.
Okay, especially when I'm doing this on 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, okay, with their parents there. But I'm obviously doing a doggone good job explaining things, okay, because what?
However, authorities botched up the investigation and Nassar was released. But as more and more victims came forward, Nassar once again faced the music.
Has there been another complaint? I'm just confused right now.
Well, the reason I'm asking is that we did have another complaint.
Really?
Yeah. And it's a patient from a while ago. Do you ever get aroused during these exams?
I shouldn't be getting an erection during an exam.
Right. Well, this is why I'm talking to you about this, because this young girl and her mother both observed this on more than one occasion during treatment.
Nassar again tried to defend his actions and played the victim card. But this time, his game was up.
If there was arousal, it's I mean, like, it would be because of whatever, I don't know, but I'm not trying to,
I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
When you're a guy, sometimes you get an erection. It's like blindsiding someone, you know what I mean? It's like if you're doing this, and you're doing it for good to help someone, and they're giving you the positive feedback that you're helping them, how do I know I'm hurting them?
Eventually, Nassar pleaded guilty to multiple charges of criminal sexual conduct. At his sentencing, over 150 victims gave powerful emotional testimonies.
What kind of a person has the audacity to sexually assault a child in front of their mother?
I will be out in the real world, thriving, empowering, and standing by others, while you rot in a prison cell the rest of your life.
A victim described how Nassar destroyed her family.
You used my body for 6 years for your own sexual gratification. That is unforgivable. You convinced my parents that I was a liar. My father and I did our best to patch up our tattered relationship before he committed suicide in 2016.
The mother of one of the victims also spoke on behalf of her now deceased daughter.
In 2009, she took her own life because she couldn't deal with the pain anymore.
However, Nobody could have imagined what was to follow when the father of a victim asked the judge to address Nassar directly.
You saw.
In a courtroom, we don't use profanity, but if you have some words that you would like to say, I would like to give you the opportunity to say them.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon.
I have
Would
a feeling.
you do that?
That is not how
Yes or
our.
no?
No, sir, I can't.
Would you give me 1 minute?
Denied, he decided to take matters into his own hands.
You know that I can't do that. That's not how our legal system works.
The grieving father was arrested and taken away by court officers. Then, Judge Rosemary Aquilina tore into the defendant.
Because, sir, you do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again. It is my honor and privilege to sentence you.
Eventually, it was time for the disgraced doctor to learn his fate.
Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant.
Ultimately, Nassar was sentenced to 175, like in the case of Frank DeLeon Jr., who's on trial for his teenage girlfriend's murder in Houston, Texas. DeLeon was just 17 when he allegedly shot and killed 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez and left her body in a park. Police said the teenager was shot 22 times in the chest and back.
The victim in this case is a 16-year-old child who was shot 22 times, mostly in the back.
DeLeon was arrested and charged with first-degree intentional homicide. To avoid a trial, he decided to take a plea deal.
DeLeon is being charged with murder. His bond was set at $250,000. We did find out he lives with his parents, and the only time he spoke in court today was to ask the judge if he could go back to school.
At his sentencing, tensions ran high between the victims and the defendants' families.
My daughter, not to hurt my daughter.
However, when Alvarez's mother, Ana Machado, tried to confront her daughter's killer, all hell broke loose. After an emotional impact statement, Machado walked towards DeLeon, but was stopped by a deputy. Then, out of nowhere, a man in a blue and white t-shirt flashed across the courtroom. It was Alvarez's uncle, who seized on the distraction, jumped in, and punched the defendant in the face. As the situation went out of control, the judge made a run for it. The chaos continued. Now it was DeLeon's mom who ran to her son's defense. Then another woman ran over, tackled DeLeon's mom to the ground, and unleashed a flurry of blows. Finally, deputies were able to gain control of the courtroom. Machado later apologized for her courtroom outburst.
It was wrong of me. That was wrong of us because we're not monsters. But it's so much hate because I want my daughter back. And what he did it was horrible. Seeing my daughter there and looking at him that he did that and he's laughing in my face. It was very wrong, and I'm so sorry for that.
The brawl also led to the escape of another defendant in a separate case. Michael Devin Combs took advantage of the chaos and slipped out of the holding area.
Some kind of way, he got out of the shackles,
And he walked out of the courtroom, and once he got out of the building, he took off his ankle monitor.
Ultimately, DeLeon was...
Hearing those victims speak, you feel their courage and heartbreak. Nassar's betrayal wasn't just physical, it shattered trust, families, lives. When that father begged for 1 minute with him, it's a gut punch. Who wouldn't want to? Lash out? Yet their strength in speaking out, ensuring 175 years behind bars, shows justice can rise from pain. It's a reminder. Victims are never just numbers.
To take revenge, like in the case of Clifford Thomas and Jasmine Gordon, who were accused of abusing a child to death in Detroit, Michigan. In September 2014, Thomas was babysitting Gordon's 3-year-old toddler, Jamila, when the child suddenly became unresponsive. Little Jamila was taken to the hospital, where doctors pronounced her dead on arrival and found bruises all over her body, showing signs of physical abuse.
This child had over 50 injuries, and they were at various stages of healing. Had several impacts all over her head. In fact, there was hemorrhaging between the scalp and the bones of this child.
Police arrested both Gordon and her boyfriend Thomas and charged them with Jamila's death. Gordon was eventually convicted of involuntary manslaughter and first-degree child abuse, while the jury found Thomas guilty of involuntary manslaughter and resisting arrest. However, at their sentencing, things got out of control. As Jamila's biological father, Dwayne Smith, got up to make a victim impact statement, he attacked Thomas from behind with a well-placed punch. Thomas tried to get one back, but the alert deputies stepped in and separated the two. The courtroom was cleared and sentencing was rescheduled for a later date. Ultimately, Gordon was sentenced to a minimum of 14 years in prison, while Thomas got another 58 months in jail for their role in baby Jamila's death. Clifford Thomas painfully...
Diamond's mother, facing her daughter's killer? Then the chaos sits, a snapshot of grief, turning to rage. 22 shots, mostly in the back. How does a family move on? The brawl wasn't just a fight, it was a scream for a life stolen. 45 years feels like a start, but it's not closure. It's a wound that never fully heals.
For that, we head to Louisville, Kentucky, where the preliminary hearing of 30-year-old Jalen Forrest is underway. On September 18th, 2023, 30-year-old Forrest assaulted and strangled his stepfather, Victor Anderson Sr., at an apartment in St. Denis. Police said the 59-year-old suffered from fractured ribs, a broken jaw, and manual strangulation. Forrest, who made no attempt to flee, was arrested and charged with murder and domestic violence. Now in court, the prosecutor called Detective Williams Burns to the stand.
Detective Burns, were you involved in investigating a homicide that occurred on September 18th, 2023 at 4523 Broadleaf Drive?
I was.
However, as the detective answered the prosecutor's questions, a fight broke out in the gallery.
They then made contact with a property manager or a maintenance.
Excuse me. Please don't let that happen again.
Don't look back here. Turn your mother.
Ma'am.
Judge, can we clear the courtroom?
Yes. No, just ma'am, I'm sorry if you're not able to. You're excused.
Judge Yvette De La Guardia asked the woman to leave, but she doubled down and accused Forrest of killing her father.
Mother killed my handicapped daddy. Him. Right. And your dad, daughter.
Even as the judge asked everyone to maintain order, the situation just got worse.
Ma'am.
You sick?
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Sir?
At one point, Detective Burns even attempted to leave the witness box to calm the situation. As things got out of hand, Judge De La Guardia threatened to hold those acting out in contempt of court.
Go! Leave! Cool off, you guys, go! Step outside! Cool off!
I don't know what I'm going to do.
Go! I'm gonna clear the courtroom. Everyone step outside for a second. I want the attorneys to approach. Everyone is excused at this time.
After the judge ordered the courtroom to be emptied, the chaos spilled out into the hallway. Deputies eventually had to use pepper spray to stop the fight. 4 people were arrested. In the end, the hearing did continue with the defense, like in the case of Lucas Kendall, who's facing murder charges in Miami, Florida. In 2012, while working as a security guard at Club Lex, Kendall spotted 2 men taking drugs in the parking lot. The 26-year-old approached them and a confrontation took place. Kendall then unleashed a barrage of bullets on the 2 black men, killing 29-year-old Keyjuan Bird and severely injuring his friend Michael Smathers, which left him permanently paralyzed from the waist down. Kendall was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and attempted murder. To evaluate his competency, Kendall was moved from the prison to a mental hospital, and his lawyer wanted to keep him there.
And then the issue is that you want him housed where?
At the same facility he's been housed.
In order to prevent him from decompensating?
Yes, Your Honor. He eventually decompensated to the point where he was sitting in a fetal position, naked, not eating, and not interacting with any human being.
This is when things got crazy.
Yeah, but my son is dead, man. My son is dead. He needs to go to prison. He don't need to be laying no mental hospital. He need to go to prison, man. Come on, sir. He want to play crazy. He wasn't crazy when he killed my son, man. He wasn't crazy then, but he crazy now. All of a sudden he crazy now. You want to lay in a mental hospital?
The request to prevent Kendall from returning to jail became too much for the victim's father, Donald Bird.
You don't murder my son, man, for nothing? When he was trying to get away from you. You were trying to get away from you, man. And you kept shooting him while his back was under the truck. You kept shooting him, man. You kept shooting him in his back. His back was turned to you, man. He was trying to get away from you. And you murdered him, man, like that. You murdered him, man, like that. Why you doing it like that, man? And you want to play crazy, man? You ain't crazy. You ain't crazy, man.
The distraught father was escorted out of the courtroom, and Kendall was eventually deemed competent to stand trial.
Well, the first thing we needed to address is he's been restored to competency.
Correct, Your Honor. There are 2 evaluations from Dr. Luis Quintana and Dr. Richardson. They both find that he's competent.
Kendall told the court he didn't want a lawyer and decided to represent himself.
How is it that you expect to represent yourself?
I'm not going to represent myself. I refuse to participate in the charade.
I would advise you to do things the easy way. You wanted a trial.
I don't want a trial. This is a charade.
Okay.
At his trial, Kendall attempted to use Florida's Stand Your Ground statute as his defense.
So the trajectory coming from outside the vehicle would have to come in that downward.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
But it failed to convince the jury, as Kendall was ultimately convicted of all charges.
Donald's cries echo every parent's nightmare, losing a child to senseless violence. His anger at Kendall's crazy act feels so human. The system gave life without parole, but for a father, it's just a sentence, not peace. These moments remind us behind every case is a shattered life. Asterisk.